Welcome back, folks, to the Membership Machine Show. This is episode 3. We're recording this on Friday, the 11th, 2022. You can join us live on YouTube or Facebook. And if you've got any questions or you want to chat after the podcast part of the show, please feel free to join us. In this episode, we're going to be talking about one of the most important and powerful WordPress plugins that can really help you manage a membership website on WordPress. But it's a plugin I think causes personally some confusion for people because it can do so much. I've got my great co-host with me, Spencer. Spencer, would you like to introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers?
Good morning. Happy Veterans Day. And it's Spence from WP-Launchify.com.
That's fantastic. So before we go into the meat and potatoes of this show, I've got a couple of messages from our key sponsors. We're coming back. I just want to point out, I've got some great deals. And if you're looking for a specific plugin for your membership website, I've got a great list of providers and solutions. You can get all these goodies by going over to WP-Tonic/deals. WP-Tonic/deals. So, Spencer, I thought we would talk about a plugin, a really powerful plugin that you know really well. You're probably one of the key experts in this plugin. But it's a solution that I also feel causes just general confusion in general. First of all, would you agree with that statement? And secondly, can you give a quick outline of what WP Fusion actually does?
I'll break that down into 3 parts. First of all, yes, I have a longstanding relationship with Jack Arturo, the author and the owner of WP Fusion. We originally engaged when he first came out with the product, and I was blown away with the potential. And he engaged me professionally to help him with the marketing and the positioning, where my initial thought, which has turned out to be true, is that this is not a developer's tool. This is a marketer's dream come true tool, because it connects any of over 55 now CRMs, either SaaS hosted CRMs or a couple plugin ones, to your WordPress site, and allows what used to be very expensive, complex marketing automation to be part of any WordPress site. So my relationship and my involvement with Jack is very deep. I'm on the website. People come to me for free calls. Now, I'm going to go to your second or your third part. Does WP Fusion cause confusion? No. I think what is true, though, is there is a standing confusion about what WordPress can do and what marketing automation is. WP Fusion solves it, but it's sort of like saying aspirins cause headaches. Now, aspirins cure headaches. The headaches are caused by something else, but then which aspirin to take and how to take it is maybe the part that's confusing for somebody who's never tried it. So what we try to do, and what we're going to do here in this show, is streamline down what is the marketing automation as it applies to some of the popular plugins, some of the features of WordPress, because that's where it really shines. It connects the features of WordPress to a CRM in a way you can track a user's journey and also give access to or display of different things as a result.
Yeah, I think that's a great summary, but just a quick follow for your question before we go on to the next main question. It has that part, but the other part, with a specific focus on memberships and people wanting to build a membership website on WordPress, that is our key focus, folks. But we also cover other SaaS solutions and online solutions. It's not totally focused on WordPress, but we have an emphasis because both me and Spence believe that you should build your membership website on WordPress, and that's what we honestly believe. But the other factor is you can build the whole membership website without a membership plugin. And if you don't want to use LMS, you can just do it with WP Fusion. I am correct about that.
Okay, let me break this part out real quick, because otherwise the rest of the show is going to be confusing as hell. WP Fusion is like a USB connector that works with hundreds of different plugins that are inside of WordPress. The reason that it interacts with them is to take the user and, again, track what they do. They click or see or buy or do something, gives them tags and collects data about them. But then because of what data has been collected, you can use the CRM to have rules or automations that say, if someone's from Chicago and purchased this product and has this tag, show them something different. Mm-hmm. Inside of WordPress, that works across a variety of different features in the form of plugins. Now, on the show, we have an emphasis on membership. One of the most confusing things about the legacy of WordPress is there was a time when you needed an all-in-one plugin to do everything, to onboard a user, collect the money, control access, do the subscriptions. So there's a dozen or so very popular plugins that have been around forever. I'll name one like MemberPress or WooCommerce memberships. People get confused thinking that they need those still. They do not need those. Why? Because we recommend a modern stack, which we'll talk about, that breaks out those features like onboarding a user, collecting the money, doing the subscription, and so forth. But the unifying thing between all of them is that the user's journey is still being tracked with tags. So you could, for example, sell the product in WooCommerce or the subscription, give them a tag, the tag enrolls them in a course or gives them access to whatever. So the number one takeaway is, in 2022 and beyond with the WordPress stack, you do not need and most often do not want an all-in-one membership plugin. Those days are over. Sorry.
Yeah, my position on this is how I rationalize it myself is if I've got somebody that's looking to host with us and they're looking maybe only to run one or maybe two courses, and because we provide WP Fusion as part of our solution, I say to them, well, if you're really only going to run one or two courses and that's going to be it, and you're already utilizing something like ActiveCampaign, WP Fusion is a fantastic solution, and because you're going to want to integrate your marketing automation with something like ActiveCampaign. But on the other hand, if I get somebody that says, well, we're really going to build a large membership e-learning business, a learning business, I say to them, well, WP Fusion is still a great solution, but I also suggest that you should use something like LifterLMS or if they're looking to build a community-based membership, something like BuddyBoss with LearnDash, with WP Fusion. This is how I kind of semi-rationalize it. What's your thoughts about that?
Well, in fairness to how you've arrived at this place, this is a consequence of WordPress's evolution too. But I'm going to make I'm going to make a bold statement here because I think that's my style, and this is what I've done over the years. I think the day has long since come and gone where a person should be coddled and given a hybrid of the old and the new. I use this metaphor every day in my phone calls for free people. Today we have electric cars. We had gas-powered cars before, and before that we had horse and buggy. There was a time when somebody had a horse and a wagon or buggy, and it was like, oh, I want to get a car. So you're like, well, you can kind of like attach the thing you got to the new thing. But in 2022, it would be ridiculous to say, oh, we're going to attach the horse and the buggy to the back of your Tesla. That's just two competing things in different universes. So in the same way, if you are going to build a membership site of any size, I would no longer ever recommend not having the layer of marketing automation with WP Fusion and some CRM at the basis of it. Because if you don't put that in now, it'll be impossibly hard to put it in later. But the consequence of that is that even with some of our friends' plugins like LifterLMS, you have to take a different approach on how you set up the sales of the LifterLMS courses. LifterLMS has built into it the capacity, if you wanted, just like a membership plugin, to sell a course direct. But you should not do that, because even if they only have one course, if you set up the foundation of the future high rise properly with the automation and the method and the rest, then if they grow the business from one course to 2 to 5 to 10, they'll never have to change it. But if you go the other way and you do the sort of horse and buggy method that already existed, now you have to sort of go, we got to undo everything and start over. Plus, you miss the main benefit of marketing automation, which is Think of an original old-fashioned store. Remember, we used to go in there, and the owner would have a fishbowl on the counter asking you to put your business card in there when you visited the store in exchange for a free giveaway. Why? Because then they know who you were and when you came and what you did and what you looked at, and they can get back to you. If you're not using marketing automation from the get-go, Google Analytics will not tell you anything about the visitors to your site. Marketing automation will, which means if they don't buy now, you can get them to buy later. If they buy now, you can get them to buy more later. You're collecting data in an ethical way about what they do. That is a layer you cannot avoid in a modern business because everyone else is doing it. You're at a competitive disadvantage. So bottom line, don't build any membership site without the layer of marketing automation. And in doing so, follow the suggestions we're doing, which is take the popular plugins and do it with the automation way versus the, yeah, there is a way to do it without it, but don't.
Right. Would that be the same answer if somebody's looking to utilize a native WordPress marketing automation solution, which the one we recommend all the time? We have got other solutions that we can offer, but it's the one that we go to straight away, which is FluentCRM. Would you still if you're going to utilize FluentCRM, which is an enormously powerful marketing automation plugin, would you still, we can offer both on our solution, but would you, on your own consultation, would you still say to them, install FluentCRM and WP Fusion?
Yes, and here's the decision tree, because the decision tree, we've discussed this in another show, but it's worth mentioning. The decision tree, first of all, when you're doing a new site from scratch or retrofitting, is a social networking component relevant? Because you have to take a different decision if you're going to use BuddyBoss on what the theme is. But once you're past that, then it's, do you already use, this is the question, do you already use a hosted SaaS CRM? Yes or no? Because if you do, like Salesforce, Infusionsoft, HubSpot, there's some companies that have other things going on with that, and you have to say, okay, fine, we'll connect to that. If not, the next question is, do you do really heavy one-on-one high-ticket selling, where literally you have a sales team calling people up, hustling the stuff? Because tools for that are maybe in other types of CRMs, which are not necessarily so mature and fluent. But if the answer on all those questions is an affirmative, no, it's cool, FluentCRM is the best thing to start with. I get feedback on your side. Hit your mute for a second, I think.
All right.
Because what happens is with Fluent, you can get started out of the box very limited for free. But even at the $129 per site pro, that's a one-time-a-year charge for something at the PHP level that does everything you need for what we're discussing. And yet, it can grow to a list of 100,000 people with no cost. Every other SaaS CRM is charging you per list member. And even if you're not making money from them, you're being charged. So you could easily be at $100 and $150 a month for a SaaS CRM that's giving you not $1 better benefit than FluentCRM, and certainly not better tools. Because I'm very close with Shah Jahan Jewel and his team, WP Managed Ninjas. They've just been extremely responsive to all the suggestions of myself and other people, and have made it into that layer feature that we need to fill in with WordPress, separating everything out into a feature. So yes, I wholeheartedly say you cannot go wrong starting with FluentCRM. And that's why with my methods and my starter kits and everything else, I go with that, because then nobody has to sign up for another service. They don't have to put things on another dashboard. They don't have to train more people. They don't have to be paying a rental. And their cost of ownership of what we're talking about on WordPress, $600 to maybe $1,200 a year. That's $50 to $100 a month, owned and controlled. Nothing else to buy outside.
I think that's fantastic. And I just love FluentCRM of the native solutions. I just think it's got the best team. It's got a track record, and the team behind it, the management team, are serious people, and it's going to be growing and supported. And I think it's just developing in the right way myself. On to the next question. So, of the learning management systems, there is 4 that we really deal with and support with WP-Tonic. That's LifterLMS, LearnDash, BuddyBoss, and SenSei, which sponsors this show. a great platform if you're looking for WordPress. Based on your extensive experience, how does WP Fusion work with these 4 main learning management community solutions, which I feel are the top solutions? Is there anything based on the experience that the end user needs to know if they're looking at these 4?
Go ahead and hit your mute again. I'm not sure why your mic's doing that fish tank thing. I'll just go through them individually. First of all, Lifter and LearnDash, I think, are comparable. In other words, they're the market leaders. The difference between them, one could say, is LearnDash is now owned by a corporate entity, over in the stack of Liquid Web, or I'm not sure which division of that company, but over at Liquid Web. And right, your mic's off, but sorry, but they're not personal. Whereas Lifter is still undeniably at a personal level the best support. You've got Chris and Thomas and the entire team.
Well, it's amazing support, isn't it? It's just,
I mean, that's what you're paying for. So when it comes down to it, the software is always open source, but like, you will not find a personal human being relationship with LearnDash, although the software is exceptionally good. You will find exceptionally good software and this ridiculously personal relationship with LifterLMS. So LifterLMS has a slightly different model. They start for free, and then you can buy the add-on package. LearnDash is you pay up front, and then there's tchotchkes that come along with the package. So you end up in the same place. But I put them on par. And I say that the difference in the communities is, I think LearnDash is maybe more appropriate for a business, a corporate entity that is really just like, look, I need that software first and all the other things that go with it. I don't care about talking to the persons. Whereas if you're starting out as a solopreneur and so forth, that Lifter gives you this real head start with the community and with Chris and so forth. SenSei, mixed emotions on this. The team leader who you've had on your show, who's a pal of mine, we talked about me doing some other stuff with SenSei. SenSei was the original sort of membership plugin from the Woo days, and it got orphaned. And I think that they're putting some effort. I was told they have a budget. They have 17 team members. They're going to be trying to bring this up to speed. I wish them the best of luck. In fact, I was hopeful that they'd be interested in working together so I can help direct them, because I think that there's room for SenSei to do something that LearnDash and Lifter don't do, which is to be streamlined down to just being the thing that does the feature of basic membership. You see, as we talked about, LearnDash and Lifter have the entire universe of options in them because they were designed as all-in-one plugins. SenSei, with the right help, could be something that could be focused really narrow on just being the thing to manage the library of courses and stuff. And if they change their mind, call me back. But otherwise, I hope they go down that path, because that would be a shame for them to chase Lifter and LearnDash. There's no possible way they're catching up with that. I don't even know if they care about that. So I would say SenSei, as of today, is a wild card. BuddyBoss is the absolute 900-pound gorilla for what it does. So, Michael Eisenwater and his now partner, Tom Chidai, they took what was BuddyPress and BBPress back in the day. He's from Chicago as well, and we talk about this all the time. They found that it was very difficult to do the things they needed to do because all the extra add-ons and tchotchkes and fixes. So they built this entire platform that is undeniably the best and only choice for anybody. And its number one attraction is the app, which allows you to take, otherwise an HTML5 compatible site, but have a true app. And almost every single one of my consulting clients asks for BuddyBoss as a platform. So when you talk about integration, now to the point, you got to go to that decision tree. So you have to ask first, are you interested in BuddyBoss at all? If you are, you need to use the BuddyBoss theme, and then you can use the Gutenberg stuff as blocks. After that, you have to ask yourself, between the Lifter, LearnDash, and SenSei, what's the flavor that suits my taste? And if you're a solopreneur, you want the community to help, go to Lifter. If you otherwise are like, look, I just want the software and I like the fact there's a lot of integrations and other things that are really established, LearnDash has incredible, continuity with that. If you want to be wild card, go SenSei, have fun,
Yeah, there's just one additional bit of information you got to know. At the present moment, with the BuddyBoss app solution, it only really works at the present moment with LearnDash. And
yes and no, because here's why. When you do a BuddyBoss, the thing that people, when you ask them, like the store, why do you want the app? Most of them want the app because it gives the appearance, rightly so, of like, we've got an app on Android or iPhone. And then when the people use it, some of them want to do in-app sales, but the majority of people don't. And we convince them to streamline down what features they use. So for them, we set up the website normally, and then you can see Lifter just normally on the app as well. You use the website to manage it, but the people consume content. You are correct, though, about LearnDash for deep integration, but it's sort of a red herring because, again, I wouldn't recommend anybody just rely on using the app.
Well, it is and it isn't, because they go to the BuddyBoss website, they start doing a big dive. It focuses on LearnDash. When they come to us, trying to persuade them that they should look at Lifter is a bit of a drag. So we attempt it, because everything you've said is totally correct. But it's just that they've done a fair bit of research. It's wrong research. That's the point of this podcast, basically.
Well, it's a difference between read only and read write. Let's distinguish it, because I think that's important too. If you're going to engage BuddyBoss for the app, first of all, understand it's a cost up front, and it's a rental cost, and you're going to need help from your company, my company, or BuddyBoss's list of agents. You can buy a block of hours. Now, the difference between the three of them is really where your orientation is. If you go directly to BuddyBoss, you'll get a very talented, nameless, faceless person who doesn't care or know about anything else you're doing, but can really help you with BuddyBoss. If you go to your company, you get this experience for the whole membership setup specifically. My company is kind of more focused on the continuity, the marketing automation, the other plugins, and the e-commerce and the sales funnel. But essentially, either way, you're going to need a budget for that. So I think if you're going in the direction that LearnDash probably starts to be a better choice for you anyway. So you solve your problem, just because once you paid for the app, you're going to spending money. You might as well go LearnDash. If you don't have the need for that, then Lifter becomes, like we talked about, more of a, let's get started in this. Let's grow something as a solopreneur, as a side gig, or, and there is a big difference in that, because a one-person company versus a budgeted, multi-person company is significant. There's thousands of dollars of difference involved.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We're going to go for our mid-break. We'll be back in a few moments, folks. We're coming back. We've had a bit of a dive around WP Fusion, which in my opinion is one of the most interesting, powerful and innovative plugin solutions in the WordPress scene. And it's been that way for the past few years, but it is amazing. If you want to support the show, please join our Facebook group, the Membership Machine Mastermind group, and also subscribe to the YouTube channel, the WP-Tonic. That's the major way that Google and YouTube sees that the channel is really doing what it's supposed to do, giving you advice and insight. So please subscribe to both. So on to our discussion, Spence. So, the key other area, we got to focus about membership websites on this podcast and on this live YouTube show. But you got the other side of WP Fusion, which is his major side, which is helping people integrate all the power and flexibility of WordPress with a SaaS-based marketing automation. There are a lot of them out there. Based on your extensive experience, what are some of the best SaaS-based solutions that work best with WP Fusion and WordPress? Maybe 2 to 3 of the leaders.
Right. So again, what's good about this is Jack publishes a scorecard over at wpfusion.com/documentation/CRM compatibility. And the scorecard is a little slanted on a few of them because Jack and I have a different viewpoint. It's Jack's thing to do, but like I tell him where I think he's right or wrong and whatever. So the scorecard.
Well, I'm sure you do that because you do. I mean,
we have a very like us, but without fighting. Jack and I don't fight or argue. We just
Well, Jack isn't the type to
Jack and
fight.
I have the marriage that I wish I had in real life. You and I have a relationship like most of my girlfriends and I. It's very hot and spicy, but it's always something. So here's what's going on. There's a scorecard, and the scorecard makes it very clear. First, though, is to ask the question, do I already have a relationship with the CRM? Because that's for most of the customers, I think, to come that are, with an existing business, they've already got something. So they may be interested in knowing about changing, but they've come oftentimes, unfortunately, really, really banged around the head. Like HubSpot people have been we've talked about this, just abused when it comes to pricing. They said it was free, and then they said it was $50 a month, and it went to $900 as soon as I added only 1,000 people to my list. And they wanted
that's so surprising. It's so surprising, isn't it?
I mean, legit. I've had customers where it was $50, got them enticed, then $1,000 for it was $900 for 1,000 people, and then they wanted $17,000 contract to watch YouTube training videos with somebody on a Zoom call.
Well, it could be worse. They could have gone with Salesforce.
I was flabbergasted. So here's the deal. If the person has that, then they can be talked into or consider using one of the A+ or A or B+ kind of things. So the number one, the ones that people come to us with, Salesforce, Infusionsoft, HubSpot, very common, MailChimp. When we're done, the one we recommend them to more often than not, which just holds all the water, is ActiveCampaign. ActiveCampaign in the light version, which is very inexpensive to start, and it does scale, but it doesn't go from 50 to 900. It goes 50, then 80, then 100, 125. You can grow a 2,500 person business on there for like around $100 a month. The point is, ActiveCampaign has all of the feature compatibility. So it's got e-commerce add-on compatibility, events compatibility, dynamic tagging, and so forth. The other ones, I'll be quite literally frank, there's nothing else to recommend, but there are a ton of them. So yesterday, for example, I had about 5 calls. 2 of the people came with high level, and I felt sad because the confusion we started talking about at the beginning of the show applies not just to all-in-one plugins. It applies to, in the SaaS world, there are companies like High Level that are building essentially a competitor to a Salesforce, Infusionsoft, HubSpot, whatever. They're trying to say, look, our platform does all your marketing automation, but where they really don't make it clear, they're not fair, is WordPress. You can own and control 99% of what you need to do, and WP Fusion connects you to, well, maybe 5% that you need to do with the CRM. So it's not really fair for them to pretend like, oh, we've got a WordPress plugin, all is groovy, because their WordPress plugin is sort of treating WordPress as an afterthought to their platform first. But obviously, because they're in the business of trying to sell that. But when people come to me like with a high level, then I have to sort of talk them down from the tree like a cat and go like, let's talk about what you're trying to do. And how, like yesterday, there was a very lovely lady had a business. She was very frustrated because when you use a third-party SaaS, you have to have webhooks to talk back to WordPress about every little thing. And she was into High Level for $100 a month. She could have been into Fluent for $129 for the year, but now she had sunken cost fallacy working on her and time fallacy. Oh, I built all my stuff using all the, I took a month to learn how to do their stuff. And I'm like, shame on them, but again, I can't blame them because they're in business to sell their own shit, and that's it.
I've had recently like 2 to 3 new clients, and they're in with SendBlue. Now, SendBlue, I'm just getting the vibe that they're looking at all these solutions, and a few of them have been recommended to SendBlue. What's your view?
SendBlue is SendBlue, right?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
No, I'm wondering what.
So SendBlue is a really nice secondary choice for somebody on a budget. Here's why. When you look at the cost of SendBlue and actually the features that they've recently added, they did what MailChimp coulda, woulda, shoulda done, but didn't. MailChimp, when they decided, it was several years ago before they got sold, to do marketing automation capacity, instead of actually adding real tags and real triggers and real conditions and real automations, they did sort of a false bounce people from list to list method. And so they kind of crippled themselves before they even started. Sendinblue, to its credit, had a revamp recently, I think because they either merged with another company. Now they have two advantages over ActiveCampaign for a certain subset of people. Advantage one, if you are a business that legitimately is just buying mailing lists, if such a thing even exists, and you have like 1 million people that you want to put on lists, Sendinblue's cost is even more beneficial than anything else. In other words, it legitimately costs you fractions of a penny per person on a list. But the second thing is that it actually does, for the price, which is the lowest of any of the comparables, give you some really powerful features and integration directly with WordPress and WooCommerce, which complement the kind of stuff you would do with WP Fusion. And so for that reason, I would say if you are on a budget but want a SaaS and you're not going to consider for some reason using Fluent, then it would be ActiveCampaign first recommendation, Sendinblue second. Now, if you have somebody who, again, is married to HubSpot or Salesforce or Infusionsoft, God bless you. I know what it's like to be in the middle. That's what happens with a lot of freelancers and agencies. The customer tells them, well, some person decided all this and now they're all married to it. Well, you can still do what we're talking about, but you have to just put your, see no evil, hear no evil over your face and ignore the fact that they're getting hosed on the cost for what they could do for $129 a year.
Right. So let's go on. I am getting some echo back from your side, Spence.
Feedback on the mic?
Yeah, it's coming from your side.
I'll turn off the mic.
So we touched it in the first half of the show. So what are the benefits and what are the things people can understand if they're looking to utilize WP Fusion with Fluent CRM? Because I'm a little bit confused myself. I think I know, but you know more about this. Can you spell out the clear benefits of having those two plugins, or is it a case that you can start with Fluent CRM and if it's set up in the right way, you could install at some stage WP Fusion, or should you utilize both? And can you give a quick outline why you should do that?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. And it's something that I have the distinct benefit and pleasure of being able to be literally directly communicating at any time through Slack or otherwise with Jack or Shah Jahan. There are still one or two things that they need to sort out, but over the last year or two, we've sorted out a lot of the conflicts. And here's what they involve. If you think of all the other CRMs being SaaS solutions, WP Fusion clearly owns the domain space inside of your WordPress dashboard, right? So when you're setting up a product or a page or a post, there will be meta boxes that are WP Fusion controls, right? What tag will somebody get if they buy this product? Because Fluent CRM is in WordPress and because they're very progressive, they've built a lot of similar features into their own product. So for example, in my specialty area with the WooCommerce products and sales funnels, you will see on a product a WP Fusion tab in the product detail area, as well as a Fluent. And they either one or both could add tags. You don't want that. So what I've said to them, and they've done a good job in other parts of the dashboard, I've said, I would love it if somebody could make a global choice to show or not show one or the other in all the areas so that they can choose, because they do have complementary features. And here's how it breaks out. I use Fluent CRM in the same way as if it was a SaaS CRM. So in other words, the answer is number one, always use WP Fusion, even with Fluent. I second, set up Fluent CRM as if it was a SaaS CRM. That is to say, in the actual interface, right? I don't do any of the controls that are available for Fluent CRM for adding tags. I only use it for conditionally displaying or managing the tags. And that is, here's a use case. Somebody who's going to buy a product. There's going to be a product setup. There's two tabs. One is WP Fusion, one is Fluent CRM. I use the WP Fusion tab for saying if they buy or subscribe to the product, get a tag. Next, when it comes to like what happens with the tag, LearnDash. if I want to enroll somebody because they have a tag, I'll use WP Fusion's capability again for that. However, if I wanted to do an automation or a follow-up or change the conditional display, let's say, of things on a layout inside of a Gutenberg stack of whatever, regular blocks, Caden blocks, then I will use typically the block, the conditional block from Fluent, because it's very flexible and lets me say, if they have this tag or that tag, show this or show that. So by differentiating the fact that they do have overlapping features, and I'm only going to use WP Fusion for all the normal WordPress stuff, but I'm only going to use Fluent for the things I do as a result of it, now I've got a very nice sort of 2-column thought process, and it works fine. Ultimately, though, what I hope will happen is that they will continue with being responsive and add a few, turn it on here, turn it off there controls, and then everything will live together without any confusion. Your mic's off. Your mic's off. Your microphone.
Hopefully we haven't lost a few people there, and hopefully they integrate even more, because I think it would be so beneficial for both.
It is. I mean, Jack is always doing regular updates, and Shahjahan and his team, I mean, they're just blowing it out of the water, because they're covering a lot of the territory that I personally am involved with, needing and wanting, and they're very responsive to it.
Yeah. One last question before we wrap up the podcast part of the show. Now, it's part of your recommendation of Stack, of your Lego tools, as the metaphor that you regularly use, which I love. So what's your position with WP Fusion with one of your key Lego plugin Stack, WooCommerce? And I'm interested to see how, that is why I thought SenSei LMS, you would be enthusiastic about that, because it is very integrated with WooCommerce in a very
if you pay for their add-on.
Exactly. So how do you position in your own recommended stack of Legos WP Fusion with WooCommerce? And am I still correct that it's a key part of your recommendative stack of plugin Lego blocks?
Okay, well, so WooCommerce is absolutely essential to every site. And that's where I also have a lot of people who come in with all kinds of unusual legacy things. I mean, I understand why, but gosh forbid, ThriveCart, or this young lady yesterday was going to use, she was going to sell on Kajabi and then needed to tell WordPress that they had bought on Kajabi. Why? Well, because WooCommerce, I didn't know how to set it up, or it was to this or to that. So let me just clarify. WooCommerce is a free plugin. You do pay, if you get the retail price, $199 a year for their WooCommerce subscriptions add-on. So call it $199, because most people need it. But it's $199 a year for something that quite literally, there is not a plugin or product or service I've ever seen that does not connect some way, directly or otherwise, to WooCommerce. So you might as well just have that in core of WordPress, because quite frankly, it does the following. Alone or with other plugins like launch flows or the ones I mentioned, it onboards users, registering and logging them in. It works with WP Fusion to allow you to tag and track them. It allows you to customize the forms and the intake. It works with all the other things that we just discussed that are for other features like social networking or e-learning or affiliates and so forth. So it acts as like the hub of your entire stack. I really can't imagine any reason that anybody doesn't want it, because even if you don't take money, the onboarding, registration, login, the capability to extend the other features without taking actual money is worth every amount of the free that it costs, even without using the subscription add-on. So in my stack, it's really this simple. There is nothing I build that does not have WordPress, WooCommerce, almost every time WooCommerce subscriptions, WP Fusion. If they can use it, FluentCRM. I use Fluent Forms, although Gravity Forms is just fine. I just use Fluent because it's totally capable and awesome. But Forms, it's not as big of a deal, but there are some use cases for Fluent Forms being very helpful. The free one is fine. You could use the pro one. If I mean, if I may say, I'm using lunch flows and everything because I wrote that plugin in the same way as utility that makes any kind of membership site or e-commerce just do things it couldn't do. That basic stack covers everything. And if you've got that and you add in, let's say, the premium cost of LearnDash or Lifter Pro, you're at, again, between $600 and $1,200 per year for your total cost of ownership. That means you're $50 to $100 a month with ownership and control versus renting ClickFunnels, Kartra, Kajabi, or something. And I want to address, because I'm not beating up on Sensei, and I don't want to say his name, but the fella in charge is a super awesome guy. He's a pal of mine. But when I talk to them, they're trying to sell their connector to WooCommerce, which doesn't do anything close to what we're talking about here. So by the time you're done paying for their add-on, you would have been better just to go with the stack that I'm talking about. And then you can actually do stuff with Sensei that is essentially as good or better than their pro add-on. And
Yeah.
I don't know why anybody would want to do that, you know.
Yeah, well, I think Ronnie and his team, he's done amazing work because he's been here for less than a year and he's really rejuvenated and built a really good team. And I think they're on a charge, but you know, we have to see how it goes. But
the difficulty is Ronnie as a person and as a leader is
superb.
High five, but he's working under automatic. I mean, he's working
let's not go there. I'm in enough trouble.
I mean, that's all you need to say. Like, he has to stay within the confines of what they're allowing his team to do.
It's like any large corporation. I'm going to wrap up the podcast part of the show. We have got a couple of questions. After every podcast, we stay on and answer some questions or finish off the discussion. So please, if you're available, watch us live on YouTube or join the Mastermind Machine Show Facebook group. That's where we push it, or you can watch it on LinkedIn and put your questions to us, but it's best to watch it on the YouTube channel, and we'll answer any questions you've got. So Spencer, what's the best way to find out more about you and your great knowledge and get some initial free consultation?
The easiest way right now, although soon it will be at spencerforman.com, will be at WP-Launchify.com, and I have the free call button, and from there I will direct you to just showing you exactly on a personal level in 15 minutes what we're talking about. I have free demos and otherwise, but the stack of stuff we mentioned today, I have prefabricated into solutions built around this, that, or the other. And again, what happens oftentimes, and that's why our companies are complementary, is that we're at a different level of the expertise. So comparable to a bridge engineer or architect, we help at the level of like the higher level, what's everything look like, where's it going and stuff. Your company, I would think, I'll let you speak for yourself, is more fairly the implementer. You're the one that actually, again, goes forth with it. So oftentimes we'll work together on projects, but I can clarify for a lot of folks like what they need and why they need it at no cost. That often leads to our engagements, because the number one thing people say to me is, why is WordPress so hard? And I say, because the way that it was allowed to come into fruition all of these years was like a flea market. And instead of being from the top down organized, everyone shows up on a Sunday and there's random tables and they get like a different result based on who they talked to or what table was there or if it was raining. And you and I both are seeking through this and otherwise to make WordPress more like a platform, where if you go to IKEA, you go to the Lego store, you know exactly what you're going to get and you know everything works right. And that's the thing that WordPress could be, and not expensive.
We supply the best plugin solutions and the best platform for value for money, but we don't enforce people, because we are fundamentally a hosting provider. But if you want advice and you want to listen to us, we don't suggest every plugin out there. We've got a slimmed down.
No, that's the point. It's curated to look. The WordPress ecosystem currently had on the order of 54,000 plugins. Looking at a subscription plugin or looking at an e-learning, there might be 12 or 13 choices. But you know what? When I go to buy coffee at the store, or if I buy a particular type of food or a service, There may be 100 choices, but I know which one is the best because of experience or asking somebody. And so you don't need to worry about a million choices. That just causes analysis paralysis. Sometimes it's better to just go, well, what will it cost me to get right to the right result that has 60,000 other people behind it? And that's where our advice and our services come in handy, because the end result is the same. One last metaphor I use all the time is this. Somebody in today's world says, I want a phone. You know what it's going to look like? It's going to look like this. But 10 years ago, there might have been 120 different types of phones, right? Blackberries, Trios, flip phones. Now it's either this shape or this shape, but that's what we've come to. And similarly with WordPress, you don't need to come up with new ways to build a membership site, because we can tell you exactly the recipe you need based upon a few of these decisions. Ta-da.
Yeah, before we wrap it up, I just want to mention our major sponsors that are so generous in sponsoring the show. It's much appreciated. That's SenSei LMS. We've discussed that, a great team. We got Launch Flows, Spencer's plugin, which is great. We got Blog Vault if you're looking for the best backup and security solution. And we got a new major sponsor, LifterLMS, a great company that they are part of the sponsorship of this show and my other show. They're all much appreciated, and you can find special deals from them and other WordPress and SaaS providers by going over to WP-Tonic/deals, and you find some all what you're looking for there. We're going to wrap up the podcast part of the show. Like I say, we've got a couple of questions. We're going to try and answer those. Please join us for the live show, and you can ask your questions during the show. After we've finished the podcast, we will answer your questions live. We will be back next week with another great show. See you soon, folks. Bye. On to some bonus content. We varies, but we've got this question here, which I'm going to show.
Lead snap.
Yeah, what is lead snap? Do you know what it is? I've never heard of it.
No. Here's the thing. It's an all-in-one solution for digital marketing agencies. But here's the thing. We talked about this before. The internet is awesome. I'm on Product Hunt every day. I'm always curious about new stuff. There are lots of standalone solutions like I don't want to list them all here, but like that do exactly what we're talking about from WordPress, but do it as a SaaS. Why do I not care about them? I don't care about them because I don't think there's any other thing that is open source that has the ability to own and control it like a WordPress solution. So if you go 2 columns, my history, my origin story was in the days of freemium and a platform. And if you look for me on TechCrunch and so forth, you can see back in those days, we learned the hard way what happens when you lock yourself into the gilded cage of being on someone else's platform. And we're seeing stuff imploding right now with Facebook and Twitter and so forth. Don't go on someone's closed source platform if you can avoid it. And since WordPress is so mature, what is the thought process here? And the thought process is what my people asked me yesterday. It's so hard. There's so many pieces. It's too many things to buy. And then when you break it down, it's like, wait a second. No, you're buying one kit of stuff that costs less than the SaaS.
Well, it's part of the internet. You got all this information. So people do a dive. They go to all these different websites. It's a bit like what we covered around BuddyBoss and LearnDash. You go to the BuddyBoss website, they do a bit of a dive, they get a certain impression. You so clearly pointed out in the podcast part of the show that what they're stating it's not incorrect, but you just need the knowledge behind it. What is lacking by doing a deep dive, which we all do when we're looking at a solution, most of us that got any common sense do a bit of a dive on the internet. The problem is we don't have the background knowledge to make a total assessment of these contradictory statements that we find on various websites. So in the end, we can become very confused very quickly or have the totally the wrong impression.
I mean, I want to say it on the plus side and the minus side, because this is something that I just personally have loved since being a kid. You know, whatever my hobbies or businesses have been, they're basically looking at things that should be simpler for the general public, but have a pain point due to lack of information clarity. So on the plus side, it's incredibly amazing that there are so many choices for free otherwise in SaaS companies and WordPress plugins and everything else. I mean, think about it. We live in a country, in a world where we have all these incredible choices, some of which are free. On the minus side, inside of those particular verticals where somebody's trying to solve a problem, like membership, like e-commerce, like sales funnels, like the 5 pillars that we've talked about on the show often, that I focus on, it hurts me. It's painful that 16 years into WordPress, there's no top-down continuity being directed or allowed. So it causes people like me and you and otherwise in WordPress to say, well, SaaS products aside, in WordPress, there actually is a reasonably simple stack of stuff, and here's how you do it. Now, wouldn't it be cool if this was like Wix or Weebly or Squarespace and they just said that from the top down? But they won't and they can't, so we shouldn't pretend they ever will, and we have to do it ourselves. So that's my primary mission and my primary livelihood in WordPress, is to say, big bullhorn, there's an easy solution over here. Everybody at the flea market, come to my taco truck, and I'm handing out ready to go answers and solutions for the things to pay attention to here at the flea market. And maybe someday it'll be different, but when it does, trust me, it's going to be in vertical silos. So we talked on a few shows ago, the way WordPress is going on its own is that different plugins are being bought by different companies, like hosting companies and others, and they're trying to jam them into their vertical, and they're going to do that Netflix model. For $17, $19 a month, you can get all of the stuff we own as your WordPress stack. Does that mean it's better? No. Does it mean it's better than it is now? Maybe, because at least you just pick one. But right now, it's a free-for-all. And so us independently are trying to provide, I think, that clarity that don't go looking at 54,000 plugins. You only need to look at 6 to 8, and here it is in ready-to-go demo form. And there's people who can help you. And once you own it, this is the important thing. You own it, and anybody can work on it.
Yeah, I think the podcast part of the show, you did a fantastic job. Because you are the clear expert when it comes to WP Fusion. I would say you're the top expert in this space. I've got to be honest with you. I wish Jack and the WP Fusion, the WP FluentCRM team, it was very clear in your own mind, and you made a really great attempt to explain, if you look why you need both. I've got to give you truthful feedback. It was the only part of the podcast show that I thought was a bit confusing, but I think you did a great attempt. I just feel that it'd just be great if Jack and the Fluent could really work together, and so it's more simpler. I don't know what
I can break it back down to one sentence. Here's how treat Fluent like a SaaS CRM. Done. So in other words, you need WP Fusion and Fluent. Pretend when you're using Fluent as if it was an outside SaaS. Then everything is clear, because if you had an outside SaaS like ActiveCampaign, right, there wouldn't be a tab inside the products area to choose from. So just ignore all of the other features of Fluent that would not be there if you're using another SaaS. And now you have total clarity of purpose, at least to get you going.
Oh, that's great. So what you're saying, thank you for that. You really clarified it. So what you're saying, the tagging side, use Fluent. Don't bother with anything, the tagging. With WP Fusion, use the tagging. With the Fluent CRM, don't just use it as if it was ActiveCampaign.
Use it as a CRM, as if it wasn't inside of WordPress. So you have automations, contacts, lists, and everything else, but don't do any of the features that it could do, and that will give you complete clarity. Now, there are obviously gray areas where you get some benefit of them working together, but if you just start with that, it's really simple, because ActiveCampaign doesn't put tabs and doesn't give you meta boxes and doesn't let you, do stuff. That's what WP Fusion is doing. But since you don't have to worry about API up and webhook back, it's actually faster and better to just use Fluent as the CRM for that. And ta-da!
Have you got time for one more question, or do we need to ramp? The one area that we didn't cover was, which is what most people are talking about when they're utilizing Fluent with WP Fusion, is the other element is they're going to set up landing pages. Now you're very focused on Gutenberg, and in the new year, we're not going to drop Elementor, but I am actively looking to recommend Gutenberg with Spectre from the Astra team. But at the present moment, we use Elementor, which has a library of landing pages, and you can customize them. What in the WordPress, in the Gutenberg world, does any of these, I call them theme frameworks, like there's about 3 of them. Is there anyone, Cadence? Yeah, do they provide a library of landing pages that you can quickly adapt and get set up?
Yeah, and I won't take issue with what you said, but I'm going to give you my version of what you're talking about, because I think this is another area of confusion. It actually came up with
it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go back to using the right plugin as a feature instead of as an all-in-one. Okay, we need to think of page builders the same way. Unlike you, even though I love Elementor's team, I'm done with Elementor.
I know you are.
Okay, because they have their own hosted platform. And in fairness, for 15 million plus people, if you want to use their platform. And it's like Elementor first, by the way, uses WordPress. Okay. But in WordPress, when you're using page builders, they're not really page builders. They're just block component builders. I think there's 3 verticals that are very favorable, because underneath them are the themes, which has the wild card of BuddyBoss. So you have, is it a BuddyBoss first site? In which case you got to use the BuddyBoss theme. But now you have the block stacks, because WordPress by itself doesn't have a competent set of blocks yet. It has sort of almost there. There's the Spectra blocks from, the Sujay and his team. You've got the Cadence blocks. And then you've got, like, as a wild card for the blocks, they're a little lighter but favorable by some. You've got maybe GeneratePress. Now there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 other ones. But again, same conversation. I recommend, I've looked, first of all, good relationship with everything that comes out of Astra and Sujay's team. But I personally like the aesthetics and the styling and the available components from Cadence. Right, Ben Rittner and Kathy Zant and that whole team there.
Oh.
So I like the output, but hold on, let me just finish the thought. The point is that has abso-frickin-lutely nothing to do with the sales funnels capability. It's strictly for aesthetics.
No,
that's the thing where let me just finish this. That's where you go back to WooCommerce. You need to have WooCommerce installed, and you need to have I'm going to recommend my own, a plugin for utility like Launch Flows along with WP Fusion. Why? Because then a sales page has dynamic capability of tracking who's come to it, tracking what they click or see or do, and directing them to the right thing.
But I'm just putting myself in the shoes of the end user, because every day I'm dealing with these conversations, right? And they just want a library of pre-formulated landing pages, which they can use, that they can adapt, put their own photo in, adapt it. And the other bit about Fluent, we install Fluent CRM and we configure it all. But they you got to put yourself in the end user. They just want a library of landing pages which they can adapt.
But they all have that. But here's the difference: they all have it. For example,
that's the problem, isn't it?
But see, this is why I'm trying to differentiate on the show. What's the difference between an apple and an orange, or an egg and a piece of bread? They're food, but they're not the same thing for the same purpose. The Elementor and the Gutenberg blocks are for visual layout only. WooCommerce is managing the underlying product and checkout as a feature and the onboarding stuff. WP Fusion is connecting with tags, what the user sees, clicks, buys, and so forth, to the CRM. Launch Flows, in this case, takes WooCommerce and makes it possible on that pretty page. If they click a button, instead of being sent to the standard shop and then the single product page and all these, it sends them to a checkout and lets them have upsell downsell. But see, the problem is in the flea market, everybody's supposed to figure it on their own, which booth to visit to collect all these pieces, versus what we're saying. And what I do is I say, here's a kit, here's a box that has everything you need already set up. So don't think of all the plugins, just think of what they do together.
Yeah, but I think there's even a fundamental, and it's totally understandable. WordPress is really, WordPress propaganda is it's aimed at the end user, but you rapidly end up in this flea market. But the reality is what it's really always been aimed at, to some extent, is for developers, power implementers, designers, and there you got it's really aimed at a whole ecosystem of middle people to set it up at different levels of professionalism and knowledge for the end. It's if you got to be a kind of certain type of techno junkie if you're going to attempt to do this on your own.
This is the best part about it. Let me switch the metaphor. I used to build houses for 25 years in apartment buildings. I was at the Home Depot, amongst other places, every single day. Now, for a normal person, the Home Depot can be a blessing or a curse, right? If you just need a tchotchke and you want to wander around, it's amazingly fun. Let's take the kids. For me as a home builder, it was like my essential resource. But many people don't want to go to the Home Depot. They need the thing that Home Depot has in a ready-to-use form with the intelligent advice about why they need it. So, for example, there are contractors who go, oh, you need the bathroom remodel. Here's the package of the bathroom remodel, exactly what you get. And I'll go get the stuff from Home Depot and deliver it to you. The problem in WordPress is, just like in the contractor world, there's 16 years of history and generations of people who don't know everything about what's happening today, who are still recommending like stuff from 10 years ago, or going back to my horse and buggy. They think a horse and buggy is the best form of transportation, and you wanted a Tesla. So they're like, well, I'll figure out how to hook a horse to your Tesla. And you end up with something that is a Frankenstein monster. So I'm not trying to put a hat on and say I'm the only one who knows this, but WordPress has evolved so rapidly and so well, even in the last 6 months, let alone the last year, that there is a huge marketplace of confusion and really disservice being doled out by people who are WordPress capable, who are putting themselves in the position of giving advice because they're going off and selling, like attaching a horse to a Tesla. And that's wrong. And that's also being compounded, no offense, because they got to stay in business, by those companies that still sell all-in-one platform plugins or services, because they're trying to say, hey, our all-in-one thing is the best thing in 2022. And I'm like, no, Mr. Horse and Buggy,
well,
creator.
it's a very difficult situation because some of these people are lovely people. They're fantastic founders. They're people that I respect, but it's not. You wouldn't
buy a laptop today that looks like the original, IBM ThinkPad. You would buy something that looks like from today. And if anybody tried to push that off today as the latest way of doing things, it would be doing a disservice because it's just not factually true. But the ecosystem of WordPress is broken because these people have to struggle to survive because there's no top-down way for people to get the clarity of this is correct, this is not. It's just free for all. And we've covered this a million times,
Yeah. Well, it's been a great show. Thanks for joining us live. Like I say, you've got any questions, join us next week. We're going to do this show every Friday at 8:30 Pacific Standard Time. The show is growing, getting fantastic feedback from people. They're loving it. We'll see you next week. See you soon. Bye.